Heard? Can I be heard? Dr. Cheryl, can you hear me? Dr. Cheryl, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now, Dr. Clark, loud
That's
and
weird.
clear.
That's weird. And you didn't hear the song the whole time? That is just terrible.
No, it was very, very choppy, and we couldn't hear the song at all. You'll hear it when you play it back.
No. That part I don't record. But
Oh, okay.
so
No, the song, Nicole wasn't on here to tell you.
yeah. Oh, I don't know what that is about, but that sounds like a little
Good
shady.
evening, Dr. Clark. It's great to see you. I'm
It's
so glad
great.
that you had safe travels, and I'm so excited to be here this evening. I'll step back in the background now. Thank you.
Hey man, it's great. Johnson in the building. As you can hear, my mischievous wife is already starting up. It's just it wouldn't be a comeback conversations without the stirring of the drink. That is my Dr. Cheryl. Mr. William Richards, how is everything in St. Martin? Are we going to see you in a couple of days?
Yeah, this weekend I'm going to be coming in on Sunday.
Okay, okay.
So I appreciate your song by Shannon Monet.
Also,
Can't help
you
it.
you was able to hear some of the music?
Yes, I can.
Oh my goodness, now
By
that's
Shannon Monet, the original by Michael Jackson.
mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. Okay.
I
Yes.
see you're putting your fingers and everything to work. That's good.
Well, we attempt to do something. I got usually I would be at my home computer, but like how next week we'll be on the cruise. Definitely will be taking next week off for those of you who are part of the Comeback Collector Circle. This is Dr. Gregory Clarke Sr. And as some of the other individuals are starting to get themselves iterated, they kind of thought just like Miss Johnson thought. Miss Johnson thought because I texted her on the side, she said, "Oh, I think I thought you was taking today off." I said, "I was contemplating it, but I know next week when we're on the cruise ship." And we're jumping from island to island and making sure that the people are having a great time. So definitely for Thanksgiving week we'll be off, but for this time it is great, great, and great. So I won't belabor long since we're all here, and anyone else that pops on will get in where they fit in. And it was very interesting. But usually I start off with current events, and I would start off with something like how quickly our legislature at the federal level today was able to so quickly decide that they're going to release these Epstein files. I mean, this I wouldn't even call it warp speed. This is like um Star Trek, level 18 level quickness. I mean, first you had the House of Representatives that initially didn't want to release the information to the people. Um Voted 427 to 1. Only one person said that they didn't want the files to be released. 427. Now, usually once a bill has at least 75% of the legislature, it becomes veto proof. So even if the president decided he didn't want to sign it, they can override him because they have at least 75%. So we can already tell that was like 99 point something percent. And then the Senate, less than probably about an hour or so after that, decided 100 to 0, 100 to 0, that to release the files. So I would lead off with that, but I'm going to lead off with something I heard this morning. This morning, usually I'm not in the room when Dr. Cheryl is doing her Girl You Cute, so it's a shameless plug. So she does a power call every Tuesday morning. And she has a bunch of young ladies on there and they're interacting and they're doing their thing. And this was the first time in a while I was able to, because usually she goes in the office, I'm still upstairs in the bedroom or whatever, and she gets herself centered and she does her little woo-saws and um does her thing where setting the atmosphere. But it was interesting to hear the conversation today. And it was very enlightening to hear how they were interacting, and it goes back to and why I align it with the Epstein files. There are times in life that we don't recognize that we can be minimizing ourselves, or others will attempt to minimize you based upon how they think or how they assume that they should move. And then as she was having her call, she was allowing the individuals to recognize how she was starting to empower them. So as I was able to, listen in on her call and listen into what she was doing, she does it every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So for those of you who are not following Dr. Cheryl Clark, especially as a woman, not a woman, but a woman, you should follow her and especially follow her YouTube channel. And she pops up every Tuesday via Zoom. And then for some of you who are her YouTube subscribers, you get to see it afterwards, after it's, fixed up and trickled in. So it is interesting to see that as our federal government here in the United States, thank God, Mr. William Richards don't have to deal with this. But Ms. Johnson, what would you say as an offshoot? Because you're well versed and well aware. What would you say about what happened today from a historic standpoint as this body of individuals who first forced a woman who was duly elected in Arizona to wait over 50 days before she can get, sworn in to become that catalyst to force them into the space that we get an opportunity to see what they really going to release or not release. What would you say, Miss Johnson?
Uh, After the initial email came out, believe it was last week or the week before, where stuff was starting to leak out that sounded odd. I was
Mm,
like, okay. But then I believe it was Steve Bannon who made a statement after the elections where it was mostly a blue wave. We're all going to jail.
mm.
So it's kind of like, as a kid when you know you're gonna get a beating, and it's kind of like, all right, I might as well do as much as I can now, because in about 45 minutes, when the parent comes home, I'm
Mm,
gonna get beaten and all my privileges will be gone.
mm,
I think that Trump is like, this is the last dash.
mm,
So a lot's gonna happen now where he's gonna solidify his, like we were speaking about last week, solidify his family's legacy. His
mm,
political legacy is already tarnished, and I don't really think he cares, but it's kind of like he probably has like a year and a half, assuming good health, a year and a half before it really hits the fan. So he's like, all right, I've had my fun. I give up. And in a Trumpian way.
mm.
That's
That's
my thought.
excellent. Okay. I know because I was kind of glued because I was able to steal away for about an hour or so today. And around that 2 o'clock hour, when they started showing the House of Representatives and they were showing the vote live. And it was like, okay, let's see. There's going to be a bunch of Republicans that's going to say no because you heard when the Speaker of the House jumped on and started saying, oh, it may be a unanimous vote because we're tired of hearing this. And, this can mess with the women who were, were victims here. And then it started to make it even more disparate about the situation. It's like, why are we still pushing this narrative? The bill already shows that they're going to redact these women's names. The bill has already been stated that the child pornography, because most of these people were still minors, so it's considered child pornography, which they found that Mr. Epstein had, were not going to be released. So, other than if you're attempting to protect some people who might have a little power, a little money, then those are the only people. I mean, we've seen one of the princes of England be stripped of his title because of some of the stuff he did, and they were able to corroborate and show the fact that, wait a minute, you spent many, many days with this man in this private island in the Caribbean. And, whatever debauchery, whatever craziness was going on, you were there. So it took his brother, the king, to say, nah, bruh, we stripping you your title. We even putting you still gonna have a home. We're gonna come to you, Miss Johnson. You still have a home, but we putting you somewhere like in Scotland. We're not even keeping you in England. We're putting you somewhere where, you know, we're attempting for this thing to attempt to be mitigated. So, because your stuff is messy. Messy, 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 messy. I know sometimes gossip and mess leads, and people love to do that, and regardless of, but here we talk about the strategic aspects of it. And there is strategy in it. There's strategy to see how things are well positioned. There was even strategy today because it all started when the president Trump decided to, because he kind of saw it, as Nicole just shared, he kind of saw the writing on the wall, where even some of his staunchest supporters were saying, yo, wait a minute, we're talking about underage children. We're talking these individuals are now women, they're grown adults, but still, when these crimes happened, they were children. And we're not looking to get to the bottom of this. This is what society has gotten to the point to, that we won't hold people accountable regardless of a power, regardless of money, that you can do stuff that's just detestable and get away with it. It makes no sense. Yes, Miss Johnson, you had your hand raised, and then we're going to go to Dr. Cheryl.
Oh yeah, I forgot that there was also a video put out by several of the Epstein victims who were
Mm,
asking to release the files, and they actually showed the pictures of themselves when they were children
mhm,
and abused some way by Epstein and his little collaboration.
mhm,
But then what we talk about a lot is diversion. The snap contingency is gone. So I'm not going to complain about money if I know, wait a minute, there's the files. Protecting victims is more important. So you're no longer thinking about all the money that has magically disappeared or
wow.
the continued destruction renovation of the White House. So
Mm.
it's a crafty plan. I'll give him that. Yeah, he's diverting.
Yes, that's good. That's misdirection 101. It's like, as they say, the shell game. You get people focused over here, and people's attention is so focused over it. Now, for me, the Epstein files should be released. So I understand the misdirection, but that is very interesting that all of a sudden the Trump administration is claiming that the SNAP contingency money, which was billions upon billions of dollars, and that's why I'm doing the air quotes, allegedly not there, which means that, okay, where did this money go? Is there misappropriation of finances? I thought initially, if we go back to when he was the 45th president, I'm coming there to clean the swamp. And I think you've made this as murky and disgusting as possible. So were you just here just to enrich yourself? This this is just this is something that from a historical standpoint, people are going to say, it says, what was the United States thinking in this period of time? But before I go any further, I'd love to open the floor to Dr. Cheryl so she can elaborate on what she was working with those women this morning about, and how I find it to be aligned with what has happened here today, especially from a historical standpoint of how this government acted so quickly to now all of a sudden say, oh, yeah, we need to release all these files, and whoever's on there needs to be done. But now they're still talking about redaction and all this other stuff. So it's just very interesting. So, Dr. Cheryl Claude, the floor is yours.
Well, yeah, thank you, Dr. Clark. You gave me some insight about what happened today because I've been running around in regards to, the voice and what I do. I think it's very important for us to realize that you may not like what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. People do not like Donald Trump,
Hmm.
but Donald Trump has learned how to use his voice. And someone said today on the call, some people are mediocre and they have the audacity to speak. Yeah, because they were taught that no matter how minuscule or how little your voice matters. And how often do we don't realize our voice matters? That's why I became the voice recovery specialist to use my tools because I realized as a Black woman, we're taught that we're too aggressive, we're too sensitive, we're too this, we're too that. And what happened with Donald Trump is that he really doesn't care. They could release any file that they want. He is the most powerful man in America. What is he going to do when they release? He's going to say that's not true because the man that wrote it or said it is deceased. So, if we could take any note out of Donald Trump's book of how to maybe use your power for good, that's what you could do. Shift it. How can I use, if I was in power, how can I use my voice for good and not self-serving interests like he does? So, in this point, what I would say is there's an opportunity here. And what I was telling those ladies today is that you no longer have to be a victim of your color. You no longer have to be the victim of the tenor of your voice. You begin to bring your power into space and then you act accordingly. And some in our world was built on the backs of our people. However, the white male has predominantly ran this country along with the white women in the homes. Now, I say if they want to be our allies, we need to teach them how to do that. And it's only our Black bodies that can be able to teach them how to treat us and how our voice sounds in the space. So that I'm complete.
Excellent, excellent. I see Mr. Guthrie has joined us here. Mr. Guthrie, since we're in your great state of Florida, I know you were able to probably catch a little bit of the news today. Now all of a sudden they're talking about the Epstein Files because most of the stuff that started in West Palm Beach here in this state. Most of the stuff that they said, the interactions, some of the inappropriateness happened in the state of Florida. So, Mr. Guthrie, what do you think, or how do you feel about some of the news that has transpired, I would say, in the past 5 to 6 hours in regards to how, especially how quickly the House of Representatives and the United States Senate have both ratified that this bill to open up all these files should be released. And good evening to you.
Good evening to you too. I think it's very interesting and a sign of the times that there might be a little bit of an equalization going on with people may finally be, some things are just right to do. And sometimes the right thing to do is not very popular, but is simply the right thing to do. I think there's a lot of information that is going to come out all across the board that's going to be very interesting if it's actually allowed to happen. And I think it's only fair with all of the lead up to this that the public should be made fully aware of exactly what the situation is.
Excellent. So, Mr. Richards, I'm coming to you because you're I would say you're an outlier, not an outsider. You're an outlier, which means you get the opportunity to be a little bit more objective because, you know, you get, I would say 20 or 30 years ago, it took time for the information to get there, but now that we're in a space where information is shared almost simultaneously across the globe, there's no, oh, they don't know, or these people don't know. No, no, no. Everyone knows what's going on. So from your standpoint, I would say like you being a citizen from your country, when you look at America and all the stuff that's going on and how we've influenced like the tariffs and the raising of prices and all the other stuff that's going on, what would you say your particular viewpoint of our country would be?
Dr. Clark, it's a very good question. What I look at is, data is king.
Hmm.
And when I look back at, let's say, for instance, the Senate, right? They was actually like perusing all the information of the Epstein files to see, most probably if the Republicans have any part of it in order to eliminate it from passing. But when you look at a situation that you see that there's a compromise, right? There's always a compromise within people who are in power and the opposition. Because a house divided against itself, cannot stand. So the most of the time you find these people are fighting for something that is right before the hands, right before the eyes, and they try to overlook it. And overlooking those things does cause consequences.
Mm.
And the consequences that they have, is always pays a price. And the price is not always paid for by the rich people.
Mm.
It's always the poor, because poor man poverty is this misery love company. But the rich think different than the poor. And then they always like to figure that money talks and bullshit walks. But when you put it together, right, eventually there's a God that still stands and he ruled in the affairs of men. So it's not that you're condemning any nation or any people, because we have it in our own country too, in a smaller version. But then you see it on a bigger version in United States and elsewhere. So then you make a comparison and say, no, I'm saying, how can they find a balance within, the society that, you don't be contaminated with the poison that is going around. So that way, when you could find a balance and you're able to, to stand your grounds and declare, without compromise, whether they like it or don't like you, right? Don't hate you anyway. But the main thing is to keep your composure, not to let the flesh get in the way. And I'm complete.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And that leads me into what we're going to share as a, nice little conversational starter. And it's interesting that on this day of all days that I will be sharing about this. And this is more or less, as I always ask my barometer, Miss Johnson, can we see my screen? Can we see
Yes,
me?
we can.
Excellent, excellent. So get rid of this little block. There we go. Measures that matter beyond metrics, measuring connection. Effectiveness is not production, it's presence. And of course, this particular thought pattern around being or ontology of being is centered around the times that we sometimes assume that our effectiveness is an offshoot of how we're producing or how we're being busy or how we are working. But most times it starts with our presence. It starts with the way of our being. The way that we carry ourselves will effectively show that other people say, wait a minute, I see how you carry yourself. This is the reason why I'm going to move like this. And if I go back to like a scriptural story, it almost goes back to when the Queen of Sheba came to see King Solomon. And it wasn't so much about King Solomon being, which he wasn't boastful, but being in a space where it's like, look at all this wealth and flaunting this and flaunting that. But it became a space of recognizing his presence. And when you have God as the foundation that germinates and generates your presence, it's amazing how effective you can actually end up becoming. And people say, oh my God, I did 5,000 different things, but you may not be as productive as that individual who's doing that one thing effectively well. See, the other day, myself and Dr. Cheryl, well, she was going to have a meeting and, have a conversation. And, pretty much at the end of the conversation, all of a sudden, with Miss Johnson in tow, so I got to give her some credit as well. They're like, well, you know, Dr. Clarke, you got to hurry up and make something for young men. Because, Dr. Cheryl has her stuff with Girl You Cute and things, this, that, and the third. And I do have some stuff. I just got to, just format and put it together. I said, no, no, you really need to get to it. I said, oh, yeah, I'll think about it and I get to it. And lo and behold, a tremendous opportunity dropped into our laps, which initially I was just there to support. It was just about her. It was about her going, taking advantage of the opportunity, doing what she needs to do, close the deal, which she did. And all of a sudden it was like, she's like, no, we closed the deal. I'm like, what are you talking about? We? No, this is your stuff. No, you're rocking out. And then come to find out, I mean, the Girl You Troop movement is doing tremendously well. And now all of a sudden, now I got to really start working on my playbook. And, for me being a football coach and doing a lot of things with young men and now, just reformat it. And, I have some good ideas that I just need to just put it together. I'm happy that we have a great team that will help me hash it out and, refine it and stuff like that so it can be ready. But at times we don't recognize that certain measures that matter. It'd been something like, oh, no, no, we don't got nothing. We don't, no, 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 no. I love the thought from Sir Richard Branson. That is how I move in my respective life. That's why I love continuously educating myself and learning. Because there are too many times we can be presented with possibilities and we're so quick to say no. We're so quick to denounce the possibility or not align yourself to say, wait a minute, are you open for possibility? Are you allowing the presence to happen? So then you can be effective. Or are you going to be so busy doing 5,000 different things that you forget about the presence? See, the presence of God is the beneficial space. And if you use that to ground you, regardless of whatever your gifts and talents are, then you can apply those into the respective measures that you're moving through. And then you start seeing certain things start to open up for you. It's not that you have to be pushy and you have to be, no. All you have to be is be. That's why the ontology of being is so important because you can tell someone there are plenty of people out there who are talented and always liking in sports. There was always someone who could have been better than Michael Jordan. There could have been someone who swung the bat better than Willie Mays. There could have been someone who ran the football better than Jim Brown. But the difference between those three individuals that I just said and other people who may have had a skill level that could have been potentially, and I put it in air quotes, potentially better than them, they had a presence about them. They took their work ethic and allowed that to enhance their presence. So that's why we have to recognize at times what are those areas that truly matter so that we can be effective as we flow. Any thoughts before we move on to the next slide? That I know I said a lot. Excellent. From counting to connecting. The traditional metrics would say numbers without meaning, measuring output instead of impact. Measuring output instead of impact. Now we move to the connection metrics. Presence with impact, measuring soul shifts and transformation. And the collective way, what we believe here in the Comeback Collective Circle, and even as we start to, share the fact that CoachClarkeDMin.com is now live, you take the opportunity to go to the website, get the fourth quarter assessment, still playing along the how should I say, the flow of being around that playbook. But the collective way is that the Comeback Collective measures soul shifts, not statistics. See, statistics will have you saying, oh, 3 people showed up, or 4 people showed up, or 5 people showed up, only 6 people showed up. Okay, that means no, but that's not where we are. If we're measuring based upon that, those minute grains in the sand, then it's like, oh my God, you only have 6 grains of sand. But technically, if you're transforming lives, you start to recognize, the universe doesn't deal in addition. It really deals in multiplication. So we can be in the traditional metric space where it's numbers without meaning. I'm just measuring. I'm saying this many people showed up, so that's what happened. But that may not necessarily be the truth because now you're looking at it from a very minute space. That's why I love the connection metrics because, there has to be a presence with impact. There has to be something that you're measuring to say, wait a minute, are you impacting because you are desiring to see people become transformed even better? Any thoughts from anyone before we move on?
Yeah, I have a thought on that.
Hmm.
I was thinking, okay, how can I relate that to our present situation? And if
Hmm.
you think about it, I forgot where I heard it first, but it's like if a mother has the information, the entire household, so generations will have the information. So
Hmm.
even if you see that one body's part of a family, a couple, a larger collective. So your impact is much broader than you originally think. And if you want to equate it to our government, if you think about Doge was like, I'm saving money or saving billions, possibly imaginary trillions of dollars, not realizing how many actual real people it was going to impact. So
Hmm.
if you're just looking at a dollar sign, but not what is behind the dollar sign or what effect it can have, you're missing the bigger picture and you're going to cause more harm than good. I'm complete.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Anyone else before we move on? Love for you to give an opportunity to articulate your thought. Remember, as we've learned over time, even Dr. Cheryl alluded to earlier, there was a time frame you couldn't, they didn't desire for you to possess the ability to articulate your thoughts, to impact the conversation. That's why we have comeback conversations here. And so there's always something here that, regardless of whatever your thought is, if you're adding your articulation into the mix, it allows us all to grow. Because it's not about just one person sharing or that person sharing. You'd be surprised what you may add that will make things so manifestable because you put your piece in the play. Like I said, it's not a grain of sand. It's about, do you see something that you can add to the mix that allows for your soul to be generated? Because you'd be surprised what can be stimulated when you connect. But we'll move forward. Effectiveness is presence. True effectiveness is felt in resonance. Connection transcends measurement. It's experienced in the moment. See, when you're really connecting with others, and that's why I was very happy this morning, for the first time in a good little while to be able to see my wife. She was on her computer and she was interacting with the ladies. And I started to see she's really being effective with these ladies. She's working with them. See, the presence of mind is not just to say, oh, she shows up every Tuesday. That's not the true presence. The presence is, wait a minute, what is it that I'm going to share with these people so that they can be empowered, not only to be able to articulate or to express, but those little nuggets that she leaves with them allows them to resonate at a different vibration, which means whoever they impact, you're paying it forward. That's the true space of paying it forward. And so if you're not really looking for connection and you're just looking for numbers, that's probably something we learned from our mentor. So if you're just there looking for numbers, okay, numbers is great, but then where's the true effectiveness? Even where we was having some conversations among some of the executive team here about surveys and things of that nature, and there was some dialogue going back and forth, and that was even great because now we're quantifying about the data. How many should it be? Should it be less? Should it be more? What and those type of stimulative conversations are needful because now we're looking at about the effectiveness, not the space to say, oh, we got 10,000 different surveys ready. What does that mean? That doesn't truly show effectiveness. How do we get down to the nitty-gritty so the information that we are requesting, regardless of its feedback, regardless of its impact, regardless of how certain things are being in the space of interaction, that we can sit there and say, oh, there was something that was resonating there. And that moves us to the next question. Ask, did we connect human to human, spirit to spirit? The quality of presence determines the depth of impact. See, I know eventually this is going to be a space where there's going to be hundreds or maybe even thousands of people that will be impacted. But if you're looking for that from the beginning, I say, oh my God, there's not 100 people on this call. That means I shouldn't do it. Then I shouldn't be doing this from the beginning. Because now if I'm just stuck on saying, oh, I have to have this many people in order for my mouth to open, then I'm not respecting those who are allowing themselves to be very faithful to this process or faithful to this community. Because now I'm just caught up in numbers. That doesn't mean I'm effective. It means I was able to market and promote and get to a certain level. And then, now how do I translate that? But it starts with connecting from human to human, spirit to spirit. The fruit of presence is transformation, not just participation. Real change happens when souls meet, not when bodies gather. And I know Dr. Cheryl can allude to this because, we had conversations even in our local assembly about, certain things of reconnection and certain conversations were being had. And we start to recognize, like, wait a minute, are some of these things really needful? Or have we allowed ourselves to evolve to a point that we're recognizing that, okay, certain things like that. So, Dr. Cheryl, what would you say to that as we're seeing that, and I think you was bringing something to my attention, which was interesting, how we have to navigate with the different aspects even of our community. What would you say to that?
Well, if I may, I wanted to go back to something you said before. I didn't want to interrupt your flow, but you said something and about the platform and I know one day it's going to be thousands or hundreds. I learned something that every platform is not for everyone.
Mm,
And if we can cultivate the 12, that's what Jesus did. He cultivated 12, and the 12 went out to say it. That's why Girl You Cute is spreading, is because I said, if I can get 10 people to spread the news about finding your voice, reclaiming your voice, and if I see that it works with someone, then it will work with someone because people are being healed. So in the communities, people will figure out, what do I need from that person? What do I need from that person? What do I desire to get from that person that I may not have? And when you get to a point where you can now find what that person has and they can get, says people are selfish. That's what I realized. That people are selfish and people want what you have if you can get them whole and complete. So if you're able to take somebody, I heard this story too. They said, if you were dying in the street and you were the only person that walked by, would you want that person to help you? It would be yes. You don't care if they had a degree. You don't care if they had something. And if they're going to help you stay alive, you're going to want them to help you. And I'm complete.
that's so true. That is so true. And when I, and when, and another thing that we have to recognize is that as we help each other, we're actually helping ourselves. And why would you say that, Dr. Clark? Because any type of level of impact not only benefits the person that you may be giving something to if you're a cheerful giver, but then you recognize you are getting some level of reciprocity in that. You're getting that vibration that shows that certain things that would be easily to put you in a box to say that you're only this, your effectiveness is showing that, wait a minute, I'm recognizing I have access to all, that I'm empowered by all. And by having this empowerment, like speak your power now, when you have that empowerment, then you start to recognize, like, wait a minute, okay, I'm here to cultivate this gift so it can be a blessing to humanity. And that's when you know that you're being effective. And it's not about just selling stuff or selling wares and stuff like that. You start to really see the real effectiveness of your possibility. Measure your effectiveness. Where was my presence on this scale this week? And this is for you to be honest with yourself. Because we're all somewhere in our effectiveness. We could be not effective, where we have a disconnection, or a level of disinterest, which means no meaningful engagement. It's okay. Not effective is not a bad thing. Not effective is a level of feedback that gives you space to say, how am I really moving when it comes to certain things that are being stimulated around me? Or maybe you're marginally effective. Effort without depth, just going through the motions. There's a lot of people who go to jobs every single day it's almost as if you've probably heard it say they're just moving in an automatic space. And there are times that we may interact with each other as marginally effective because we're just going through the motion. Okay, I already know what she's going to say. I already know what he's going to say. And so, wait a minute, you're just going through the motions. Do you really know what that person was saying at that moment? Or did you have your always listening on, which puts you in the space so you marginally effective? You just there. As Marshawn Lynch said, I'm just here so I won't get fined. Or have you moved on to somewhat effective, momentum, but needs alignment? Progress with room to grow. I would say I'm there. I'm somewhat effective. There's momentum, but there's certain things that when you start to allow yourself to be in alignment, you're willing to, like when you have to go to the chiropractor, sometimes the chiropractor has to, crick the neck, or hopefully no one's experienced sciatica and, what I'm saying, something is going on with your back or your spine, and all of a sudden they're doing those things to, you start noticing curvature and things of that nature. Okay, we got to figure out how we can get you so your back can click, get that thing click back into place. It's some level of alignment that's needed. And at times we all need those alignment areas. Or you may be so special that you're just always effective. Connection alive and transforming. Presence creating impact. Now, technically, we all can be flowing at that level. There's no reason for us. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to necessarily stay at that level 24 hours of the day, but there's no reason that at least once a day you should be able to feel the presence of being effective. Because we all have it in us. Now, do we choose to be effective? Now we're dealing with the biggest caveat of them all, because now we're talking about the power of choice. Because some people like being not effective. Like, I don't feel like engaging with nobody. It's not my thing. Or some people like being marginally effective. I'm just here so I won't get fined. I'm just going through the motions. Yeah, I've been here 20 years. I've been here 19 years or whatever the case may be, and this, that, that. We're going to come to you, Dr. Shaw. Or some people in that somewhat effective space where they have some level of momentum, but are they willing to really get into that alignment to get to that space so they can reach effectiveness? Because we all can have room to grow. Or do we feel that we have arrived, which could be a double-edged sword? So, Dr. Shaw, I saw your hand was up. What would you like to add to the conversation or thought?
Yeah, I will put a caveat on that a little bit, Dr. Clark, because with working with people, some people don't believe they got something to say. Some people don't even know how to be effective and being effective in the space of how do I get that next? How do I get that next position? How do I do that next? And sometimes being effective is being able how to teach it, how to be able to teach how to do that. Hold on.
As
how
Dr.
to how to really, really be effective. And I
Mm.
think that's where you and I come in because that's where you can show people, listen, you have a skill here. This is how you can be effective at it. I see you being a really good organizer, but you're not effective because you're screaming and yelling at people. That is not effective at all. So I think having the ability to have someone show them the way and have a choice, and I'm complete.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. That's true. See, that's where see, you see how dialogue works? See, when it's only a monologue, you start saying, oh, it's only whatever it is, my mind. That's it. That's how effective it will be. But when you have the ability to bounce ideas off of others and you allow for your voice to be in the manner, and that's where it ultimately comes choice. You have to have the choice to say, wait a minute, I'm putting my voice out there. I have something to say. Or, as Dr. Cheryl just alluded to, there are people who sit there and says, well, I do have a thought, but I don't know if I should share it. Why would you do that to yourself? You can be the missing ingredient to a possibility that can help others. And then you always hear it plenty of times when people say, I saw this idea on TV and I know I had that idea or I had that thought and I thought about doing something just like that and someone beat me to it. No, they didn't beat you to it. Can't even say that. Because technically, you had the same opportunity to get that thing to the marketplace. That idea popped into your head. Now, where were you on this effective scale to say that you were willing to do it? Or you're going to keep kicking the can and I'll eventually get to it. That doesn't work. Like the possibility that myself and Dr. Cheryl got presented, I already know. I may not get to it within these next, couple of days because we have other responsibilities, but I already know when we get back home, I already know I gotta get that thing on warp drive. And I understand that. And that's good pressure. Just like I talk about good trouble, there's certain pressures or certain stresses that are good because we're not stuck on the space of just, making these assumptions on the long term and the long haul. There's certain things that are good stressors because you're not just stuck and just saying, oh, okay, we're just going through the motions. No, wait a minute, this is a little bit more heightened. And not from a nervousness space or, oh my God, oh, no. It's just about, okay, yo, we got a deadline. Okay, let's put our minds together. Let's become as effective as we so choose to be. Let's get this thing done. And it may not necessarily be perfect, but it's something that is presentable and powerful that can be even enhanced as you go along. Even though they credit Edison with creating light bulb, we know light bulbs right now that use less energy and emit the same type of or even brighter than what Edison created. Will we say that Edison was not effective? No. It's just through the evolution of time, it has gotten better. It has got enhanced. So we're not going to call it not effective. It's just saying, wait, we don't have to do it. We don't have to look for horsepower to jump on top of a horse. Now we can talk about horsepower because we're in a vehicle. And depending upon how many hundreds of horsepower it has, you can get XYZ faster. So it's just a thought. We're going to ask these 4 questions. Were they seen? Did we acknowledge their being and honor their presence? That's why here, especially here with the Comeback Collective Circle, if you've been a subscriber here to the YouTube channel, you notice we always greet everyone. We always put ourselves in a space where we're greeting and being expressive in those respective areas. Why? Because we're here to be in a space. The light bulb was in existence before Edison. He had better marketing and spoke louder. I like that. I like that. That's so true because if it wasn't for Latimer, even that wouldn't have gotten to where it got to. So do you acknowledge other people in their being? Because remember, that's part of the ontology and movement in a space of recognizing being. And once you can honor their presence, you're honoring your own presence by honoring them. So do you see people? Were they heard? Even though we know expressively it's better to listen, but were they heard? Did you give yourself the ability to at least hear the phonemic phonemes that are around? Because I know myself and Dr. Cheryl, had a very, not so much intensive conversation, but we had an opportunity to have, a very responsible conversation. And in that conversation, we started talking about, there's a lot of ambient noise that's around us. But there's a difference of knowing that we can hear the noise that's around us. But are you focused enough that while people are speaking, that at least you have some intent to listen? So did we create a space for authentic expression and voice? See, when it's authentic, you recognize authenticity is not perfect. Oh, I only can share this if it's perfect. Ooh, that means that you're never authentic. It is going to be there's going to be areas of your expression that may not be 2000% proper or be always, I'm always properly aligned with everything that comes out of my mouth. That means you're very structured to give a good face. That good face doesn't necessarily mean you're giving your greatest voice. Where they shifted, the insight or breakthrough occur in their understanding. And I remember myself and Dr. Cheryl were, going back and forth, giving ourselves feedback and having a conversation about that conversation that we was having with those individuals. And it was like, wait a minute, yeah, do you think? I said, we'll see, the proof is in the pudding. Now we're looking at what are the outcomes. Because if the outcomes move in a particular way, then we know, okay, there's some breakthrough that finally happened. And if breakthrough happened, then it's not only better for me and Dr. Cheryl, but it's better for the community. It's better for whoever that we were speaking to. It's better for them. Sometimes we can be in a space where we think, oh, breakthrough is just about to pat myself on the back because I got them breakthrough. No, no, no. You're looking at it from a very, very egotistical manner. So if people leave you, and there was some level of shift that you was able to at least give them some level of impact, then you did what you were supposed to do. There was some level of breakthrough that occurred. And finally, from this slide, were they strengthened? Did they lead more empowered and equipped? And that was the thing that made my heart, jump a little bit this morning because I saw she was equipping these ladies. I said, okay, look at her go. Look at Miss Cherry here doing her thing. She's empowering these ladies. They're feeling equipped for their day. And when you can strengthen someone else, you're actually strengthening yourself because you can't pour from an empty cup. That means you have to start to do the things that keeps revitalization happening for yourself. Because if you know that you have to give out, that means how you're going to take care of. It's the worst case scenario that you have something great, but if you're not taking care of yourself, this is hard for you to sustain it, which means some of those people that you should be empowering and equipping may not be able to get in your presence because you didn't take care of yourself. So that strengthened part is not just what you're pouring out, but what you're willing to do to enhance and to pull within. Any thoughts before we move on? Connection has a frequency. Every meeting carries vibration, alignment or resistance. The energy speaks before words do. People can feel you. You notice that? People can feel you. I ain't say a word. The tenor of your vibration, the way you walked into the room, the way you may have looked at people, the way you may have interacted, the way that you may not have interacted. You carry a vibration. We all do. We all emit something. Just because you emitting something doesn't mean that you're emoting something, but you are emitting. So that's something for us to remember and to recognize. Connection has that frequency. Notice the room. Sense the atmosphere before words are spoken. Presence precedes content. If you go into a room and your head is down and it seems like you're disheveled and you're dropping your computer, you're dropping papers, and it seems like, oh my God, what's going on? I'm like, oh my God. Okay. Everyone's gonna sit there and be like, okay, you're part of this room, but are they really gonna receive what you have to say? Because the atmosphere and the tenor of what you set up for that room is not necessarily workable. Because before you can say the most powerful thing out of your mouth, they're going, oh, okay. You really couldn't really get this thing hammered out or expressed. So make sure your presence speaks powerfully as you enter, so your words are only there to enhance. And finally, on this slide, leaders are thermostats, not thermometers. We set the temperature. We don't just read it. See, thermostats can change, know when to cool down, when to heighten up, because all temperature is, remember, temperature is just a measurement of molecules. The molecules are moving fast. It means it's generating and emitting energy, which means you feel heat. The slower the molecules go, like how we're in the Northeast now, some of us who live in the Northeast of the United States, right now we're in the space where the vibrations of the energy that's being emitted is a little bit lower. The molecules are moving a little slower. That means we're going to feel a little bit more chill in the air. When summertime and spring comes out, or those, occasional warm days, the molecules are moving at a heightened space, emitting energy. So remember, we as thermostats, and I'm talking about us as leaders, as we stay as thermostats, we must recognize that as we set the appropriate respective temperatures, that the power is within our hands, not in other people's hands, in our own respective hands. And you can control or at least have some sort of governance of a room based upon what type of frequency that you're moving through. Tracking the invisible. Observe transformation through tone, trust, and testimony. The signs are very visible. Capture stories. Stories and sentiments are your real metrics. Document the journey. Like as I think Dr. Cheryl was shared about, they was asking her about outcomes and things of that nature, certain things to see, what is that, which leads to part three. But how do you capture the feedback? How do you capture is certain things being grasped? You have to capture those stories. I remember we had to do that when we were working on our respective dissertations. What does the data say about this particular study? What does this data say about this particular work? Is it effective? Is it not effective? And just because it's not effective with this group, could be effective with another group. What is the stimuli? What is the qualitative? What is the quantitative? All of that is a part of documenting the journey. And the highest ROI, which is renewal of insight, you thought I was going to talk about return of investment. But the renewal of insight, transformation of perspective and understanding, which in its own self is a return on investment. And yes, life is a business. You can tell if you are winning or you are being appropriately great in life if you're making certain things that you see, oh, I'm getting some higher returns of investment in the quality of life, the quality of individuals that I interact with, the quality of individuals that I'm helping to develop, to empower and equip. All of that is part of the ROI. So you can look at it as return of investment and also renewal of insight. And if you're always evolving, it means your insight's on high because you're recognizing you can't just be stuck on what you previously did. Choose ye this day. And if you're choosing appropriately, that invisible space, that frequency, that unction, that thing, that whatever that you desire will still manifest itself, but it's invisible. You'd be surprised. Some of the greatest things happen in those invisible spaces. And finally, your weekly effectiveness check. Who felt seen because of your presence this week? Over the course of this week? Well, 2 weeks, because we won't be on next week. But reflect on moments of genuine acknowledgement and connection. Think about those times that if you're really being effective, you're really playing a higher game. You start to really think about it, not from the metrics of just looking at the numbers, but like, yo, was we effective? Did people get it? Are people starting to get it? Because if they're starting to get it, it's okay, now we know what we're building upon. What conversation brought a shift in someone's spirit? Identify breakthrough moments where transformation occurred. We have the ability to transform every single day. It's not, okay, I'm gonna transform one day and then the other 6 days out the week and there's no transformation. No, we have the ability to transform every single day. Now, if you're choosing not to, that means, as we talked about with the effectiveness levels, just choosing not to be effective today. And that's okay. That's your choice. And where can you create stronger connection next week or over the next couple of weeks? Plan intentionally for deeper presence and impact. When you become much more aware, or as they used to say, people used to go to those classes where it was about, almost about your presence and etiquette, all this other stuff. How do you sit at a table? How do you know which fork to use and all that other stuff? All of that is part of your presence. It gives you a level of understanding. How do I interact with this culture? How do I interact with that culture? That shows that you're generating a strong presence because you're not just only called to your people eventually. Because if you have something that is great enough that can equip others, then other people will be coming down your path, and you have the ability to learn or to evolve and to be aware of what's going on around you as a world citizen, not just a U.S. citizen or not just a citizen in the Caribbean, but as a world citizen. And you start to recognize, wait a minute, I have the ability to create strong connections all over the globe. And it's okay. Nothing's being minimized, nothing's being left out. And finally, we measure by movement of the heart, not just motion of the hands. When you're willing to really be established and position yourself in a space where you're allowing yourself to be effective and even checking on yourself and checking on you. And when I mean checking on yourself is willing to even speak to yourself and say, yo, where did I mess up at? And not just say, oh, okay, you should just accept that. No, I messed up. Okay, that's something I need to work on. That's something I need to fix. And if you're willing to check yourself realistically, because the same way if you have the ability to check others, that means you should be willing to be checked and also to check on yourself. So effectiveness comes in all those various forms and various possibilities in order for things to be enhanced. And with that being said, we are complete with the thoughts and the teaching. So, any thoughts before we start to bring this thing into a close? Any thoughts? Any thoughts? No thoughts?
Transformation is an ongoing process. I like the ROI twist on ROI number one.
Hmm.
We're consistently having transformational opportunities. For example, we might have responded one way last week, for example, but based on our level of connectedness, based on our level of connection and just transforming our own thoughts, we're able to respond to the same situation that we would have responded one way last week, a couple of days ago, totally differently today. So for me, it's like ongoing, eternal, consistent development of self, and therefore equipping us to sow outwardly more effectively, but also be more engaging as well and looking for opportunities to do so.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Anything else from any of the ladies? Any thoughts? Anything you wish to add, chime in? Just thoughts. We good. We good. Oh, Miss Johnson.
I would have the thought, but I'm still ruminating on the if you're too focused on perfection, you're not being your authentic self. I'm trying to come to grips with that in my head because I'm like, you want me to show not my best self? That seems like a terrible idea, but your statement was true, so I'm still trying to work through it. So I'm back here working.
What I would say to that, Miss Johnson, is that and I learned this interacting with Dr. Cheryl. And it always goes back to the standpoint of we sometimes desire to be so perfect that we end up being no earthly good. And even when we see the space of recognizing that, people don't have the iPhone 1 right now. The same way that even though I'm a Droid, I'm on my Google Pixel, but the phone that I walk with now is the Google Pixel 10 XL. But I remember I've had Google phones now. I was a Samsung person, still saying the Droid, had Samsungs and stayed with Samsung, then Google started building their own phones. And it's like, wait a minute, okay. So I've had a Google phone since the 5. And it's like, okay, each iteration, I make the choice to say, okay, I like the quality of stuff. But compared to when I had the Google 5 to now with the 10 XL, forget about it. It makes that 5 look terrible. But we start to recognize there was an evolutionary process that Google was going through. The same way how people are probably out there looking for the 17s for the other brand. Doesn't mean that the 16 is banned. It's like, wait a minute, certain people just decide that, they consider to move in that evolutionary standpoint. So even in technology, we get to see that there's no perfection. There's nothing that has been perfected because if a technology company says, "Oh, we've made the greatest thing since sliced bread," that means what else can you do? What else can you make? That means there's
It,
no other transition. There's no other faster processor. There's no faster RAM. There's no faster SSD. That really, really.
well, no, I paid the early adopter tax. Well, I done less recently, but I paid that tax.
Hmm.
So someone else told me that what is it? Complete is better than perfect.
Mm.
So I need to work on being fine with being complete, which is
Mm.
not a bad thing. It's
No,
about rewiring the brain.
that's what I know. I know you and Dr. Cheryl gonna get on me as as someone, when someone was iterating, I must be a prophetess, and about, certain things. There's nothing wrong with that. This is a good thing. But in regards to, certain things, because no, you give credit where credit is due, because sometimes, and that's where the authenticity comes in as well. Because there are times where people sit there and try to stand as like, that thing just sparked in my mind, and that's the reason why I was able to accomplish. It's like, wait a minute, a person who's truly authentic knows how to give credit where credit's due. Sometimes everyone needs a little push or kick in the behind to be like, yo, you can be even better. You can be even greater. Okay, like when I used to talk about Kobe, you wasn't in the gym shooting the shot with Kobe. If Kobe was sitting there 3, 4 hours a day shooting the shot, like, man, you wasn't in the room, the gym shooting the shot with Kobe. Kobe perfected it. And he created that Mamba mentality because he recognized if I'm going to be this level of greatness, I have to invest the time. And the same thing with everything else. And he always gave credit to all the people who pushed him, because if it was Michael Jordan to the coaches that probably no one will never know about. And it's like, wait a minute, when you can give that credit and recognize, like, wait a minute, we all get inspiration. The people who truly keep inspiration are people who are thankful. And thankful people are thinking people. And when you're thinking, you recognize not every single thought that you have is all yours. When you can give credit to whom credit is due, then you recognize that and you can receive credit as well. So that's where I go with that. That's why it's nothing about being perfect. If we roll around being perfect, then we'll never get anything done because I'll only release it if it's perfect. Really? That means you're gonna stay poor. You're gonna end up being poor
You're gonna
because
be constipated spiritually and physically.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see Dr. Cheryl popped up. Okay. What's going on with Dr. Cheryl?
Yeah, so I learned this over time uh, from some people I've been listening to over some time now. You said a word here, and I just want to share what I learned about that word, authentic, and being authentic.
Mm.
Said, do you want a doctor that said that when you came into a doctor's office and the doctor says, I had an argument with my wife. I don't really like my wife and I don't like things that's going on. And my children. Do you really want to hear that when you go to the doctor's office? You do not. You want to know if it's a dentist, how you going to fix my tooth?
Mm.
You want to know if it's a podiatrist, how you going to fix my foot? And he said, being authentic is overrated. And I was listening to him and I was like, wow. He said, show up being knowledgeable in a space and be authentic with your family. Take your head down, they want to hear your problem. Your family should be the one. But when you come out in this world, that's why I want to kick back with my husband. And so I could be authentic Cheryl. He calls me Cherry at home. I want to be, I call him Hughberry at home because we've been our authentic selves. People don't kick a care less. In that meeting, when I was talking about that woman, she didn't ask me nothing about my family.
Mm.
She asked me, what are the outcomes of these children? They could care less if my foot was hurting. They could care less that I had to get on a flight. She could care less. You're here for this meeting. So I was told being authentic. So I'm I'm clearing out being authentic out of my vocabulary a little bit in regards to my work.
Mm.
In my work, I'm showing up to multiply my talents in people so they can be their best selves in their vocation, in their homes. And I want to kick back and be authentic with my friends. I think Nicole authentically knows me. I think Dr. Clarke authentically knows me. And that's what you want to be authentic with your people. So when people pull from you, and when you go back home, you can kick back and say, listen, babe. And you'll be like, I got you. Like, I got Dr. Clarke. When she said to me, oh, we wish you could have these for the guys. I got you. I got the perfect person for you. That's how you being. That's what I wanted to share that. And I didn't come up with that on my own. Um, it's just what I've been sitting and listening to professors and people that may not look like me.
Mhm.
And I understand that that's why I come into space when anytime I talk about it, I talk about what I know and I listen to what I don't know so I can maybe learn and glean for what I do know. So I wanted to add that in the space for people. And I'm complete.
Excellent. And one of the final thoughts for this evening, I see Mr. Guthrie put into the chat, effective when we need to be and authentic in the right setting.
Bam. I like that. Because your wife knows that everybody knows you don't just be, and when people don't get you for your authentic self, maybe it's time for you to, whatever. I know Dr. Clark and I gotta go. Love y'all. Thank you for, I was getting ready to close it out. All right, bye. All right, all right.
Bye bye.
I was getting ready to close.
Let me just share this. This is the ways that you can support the Comeback Collective Circle. Different ways to support. You can do it via Cash App, $ Gregory Clarke DMin. You're doing it via Venmo, just drop the $. It's the same handle, Gregory Clarke DMin. And if it's Zelle or PayPal, you can do it via my email address for this particular platform, esquire971@gmail.com. And once again, it's my pleasure to say that CoachClarkeDmin.com is live. You go to the website, you have the opportunity to take the fourth quarter assessment. It's one of the first, and something as a capture tool, just to You get a chance to enhance and to find out a little bit more about yourself by taking that fourth quarter assessment. And, that shows that you're becoming even much more entrenched with the Comeback Collective Circle, as you'll probably start to get communications and interactions that only people at that level will receive. And once again, you can also become a subscriber to my YouTube channel, Dr. Gregory Clarke Master Coach. And by doing so, we are as wonderful, as effective, and continue to spread this message out there as we are proven to do so. We can be effective, not just for the numbers' sake, but to be effective in our transformation. So, in a couple of weeks, we'll be back at the same time, same space, but you enjoy the holidays, enjoying being authentic with those that you can truly love on and be effective in those spaces where it's called for you to be in the marketplace. So, peace and love, and have a great evening.
Yeah, good evening to all.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays. Happy holidays. Happy holidays. Let me not sing. I might jack up the end. Have everyone be fit and wonderful.